Before we dive in, I want to share a story I've seen play out countless times here in the Bay Area. A retired couple, Linda and George, had worked hard their entire lives. They raised their kids in the same San Jose home for over 40 years. That home was their pride, paid off, full of memories, and worth over $2 million. But when George's health began to decline, they faced a big decision. Should they sell the home to pay for assisted living or keep it and try to scrape together the monthly costs from their retirement savings? They didn't want to be a burden to their kids. And they also didn't want to lose the home they'd poured their lives into. But they were sitting on an enormous amount of equity that could have given them more comfort, better care options, and even help their kids now instead of decades down the line. This isn't just Linda and George's story. It's the story of thousands of Bay Area seniors. That's why today's episode is so important, because there's more than one way to think about the legacy you leave. And sometimes the best legacy is giving yourself the dignity, comfort, and freedom you deserve now, while also building wealth for the next generation. I'm Dale Corpus, a senior transition specialist and real estate expert based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and a proud member of the Sandwich Generation. On this podcast, we make senior living information more accessible so families can make informed, confident decisions. Today, I'm joined by Kevin Pham, area manager and senior reverse mortgage consultant with New American Funding. Kevin's passion is helping seniors shift their mindset about home equity from something you guard until the end to a tool you can use to fund your lifestyle, care needs, and even generational wealth right now. We'll be talking about using home equity to move into assisted living or CCRC, funding aging in place, helping your kids sooner rather than later, and creating lasting family wealth. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast, where we help families navigate senior living, real estate, and everything in between. Hosted by Senior Transition Specialist Dale Corpus, this show brings you expert insights, real solutions, and stress-free strategies to make senior transitions simple. Ready to dive in? Let's go.
And we're back, everybody. Kevin, welcome to the show today. How are you?
I'm doing great, Dale. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. Kevin, can you start by sharing a bit about your background and what drew you into the reverse mortgage space?
Well, actually, I started in the banking industry and realized that when I was managing branches, a lot of my clients that came in, I really had a connection with the active adults that came into our branch because I loved the stories that they shared with me. I love the relationship that we built. And then after managing branches, I decided to go into development. So I became a regional program manager for a huge bank and developed some plans to help our bankers to be able to profile clients in a better way to provide them with the right solution. So what I did is I combined my relationships I had with my active adults and my development in really providing tools and resources and educating people. And that's why I decided to go into reverse mortgage.
Perfect. And what personal or professional experiences shaped your philosophy on how seniors should think about home equity?
If you don't mind me sharing, Dale, it has to do with my mom.
Okay.
My mom basically was a single mother, and she basically really helped us kids to be able to get us to the next step. And so the reason I'm sharing this is because that philosophy there that she was able to ingrain in us and help us get to that start, it really helped me to realize, wow, this is something a lot of people should be doing, not later, but sooner. And so with having my mom teach me as a young adult what I need to do to have a good career and to create generational wealth for myself, that's what really helped me to realize I need to help others with this too.
Okay. You said you want to change people's mindset. What's the current mindset you're seeing in most seniors today?
It's a funny question that you asked that, Dal, because right now I see a lot of active adults. What they do is they're afraid to touch their equity in their home because they've always been taught, just like you and I, we've always been taught our goal is to buy a home and have it free and clear so that we can leave it for our children. But what we're missing though is the concept about what we leave for our children may not be enough for what they need currently right now so that they can establish that wealth for them. They can establish their beginning stages of their life with either themselves or their family. For me, I feel that mindset of just having it property free and clear, not touching it, leaving it for your kids needs to change, because if we don't change and plan ahead, there could be a lot of consequences down the road, not just for us as young adults, but for our parents, the active adults.
Yeah, yeah. And I could tell you're so passionate about it. Why is this topic so personal for you?
It's because I've always been raised, my mom always have taught me, put myself in other people's shoes. So, when I deal with older clients, I realize that there's a lack of education out there for them.
Hmm.
I feel like there's a lack of support for them
Hmm.
with their kids or with their friends or family. And it made me realize that we need to make a difference out there. And in order for me to make a difference, I realized that I really had to come up with a game plan for myself to go out there and educate and teach people and have that passion to show them that there is help out there. You just need to open your mind to able to learn what's available. And even your young adult kids, have them learn, because I think by learning, you're going to be able to overcome a lot of objections for you and for them down the road.
I love the term you just used, opening up your mind. You're out there pushing forward with education. You're shifting mindset, right? Shifting mindset about equity for that matter. And I wanted to ask more questions related to that. I know many seniors aim to leave their home free and clear to their children. Why do you think this can be limiting?
It's because, like I mentioned before, because sometimes your kids need help when you pass, but they sometimes need help in the beginning for you to be able to get them started. I mentioned earlier in my story, my mom was able to help me get started buying my first place ever. She gave me the deposit to put down on it. If I didn't have that, there's no way I would have been able to accomplish any of the things I've accomplished today. By active adults not touching the equity and not knowing the benefits of their equity, it really limits them from being able to, first of all, help their kids, help themselves, come up with a game plan to know what their retirement plan is going to be.
Okay. Can you share an example of a client who tapped into their equity and improved their lifestyle or care options?
Oh my God, I could share many stories because I've been specializing in this for about 20 years. But the one story that really impacted me, Dell, was when I had a client who basically was in the foreclosure process and didn't know her option. She was a single woman, and she basically went to the bank where I used to work, and one of the bankers was in tears because this client was going to lose her home. And so she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I have a client, an elderly client, an active adult that is going to lose her home. She's in the foreclosure process and she doesn't know what to do." And I said, "Introduce me to her. Let me see what I can do and let me figure out what solutions we can provide for her." And when I met with her, I asked her all her questions, asked her how old she was, how much she owed, and what her monthly payments were. We were able to provide her with a solution where we could be able to pay off her mortgage payment to where she didn't have a mortgage payment anymore, which basically ate up probably 80% of her income. When we were able to just eliminate that, it just gave her a whole new life set to where she was able to, first of all, keep her home, stay in her home, be able to sustain a living because that debt is gone. So that's one story about just saving homes. There's stories about helping older clients be able to have extra funds to be able to provide in-home care,
Yeah.
or even helping one of their spouse to be able to go to assisted living or CCNRC, like you mentioned, right? To where they can be able to afford to have that other spouse be able to exit their home, and then the other spouse still live in the home, but provide a level of care service for that spouse that needs it.
Okay. Yeah, very helpful, your solutions that you provide. Now, how do you address the emotional side, the feeling that I'm taking from my kids by using my equity?
Well, since that's where I said about education I mentioned earlier, right? A lot of people feel like they're taking away from their kids, but
Right.
really, if they don't use their equity, they're going to rely on their kids a lot. And what people have to understand is that they need to educate their kids. Their kids also need to educate their parents. And they need to talk about this in the beginning stages of their parents' retirement so that they can understand and the parents can understand also that they're not really touching the kids' equity. I think it's a lack of communication that
Mhm.
causes people to feel like it's an emotional thing, but really it's not. You would be amazed how if you talk to your parents and you realize that your parents feel this way and you don't really realize that, and you really don't realize that you don't need to have them save all this equity for you because Either way, they're going to reach out to you, whether it's equity or whether it's financial help. So I feel if you communicate sooner than later, it'll clear up a lot of issues and problems, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Let's segue into funding senior living and aging in place. Let's talk first about assisted living and CCRCs. How can home equity make these more accessible?
Home equity is, like I mentioned, an amazing tool for many different reasons. But for assisted living and the CCRC, like you mentioned, right? If a spouse needs to exit and get more care, they could be able to provide equity to provide that spouse to have that extra care, whether it's assisted living or you have clients who want to eventually buy into the CCRC programs, right? It's a great tool to use the equity of their home. And many people don't realize this, but whenever you pull equity out of your home, it's not considered funds. So those are tax-free funds that you're using. It provides them a lot of resources and tools to be able to provide themselves, their spouse, with the level of care that they need.
Right. For seniors who want to age in place, what are some ways equity can fund necessary home modifications?
Of all the reverse mortgages I've done throughout the 20 years of my experience, probably 35% of my clients do a reverse to enhance their home.
Okay.
So what they do is they use the proceeds to be able to either make it more handicap accessible for them as they age and they can't get up the stairs, and they are able to buy those electric chairs that bring them upstairs. They also have to where if their roof is falling apart, they can have funds to be able to make that home safe for them, safe and sound for them. And then also, like I mentioned, sometimes they just want to be able to enhance the house to where it meets their standard of living, you know? So there's just so much stuff they can do with equity in improving on their homes.
Okay. And how can equity be used to move closer to family or into a smaller, safer home?
We actually, Dale, call that right sizing. Right
Okay.
now, as many of our active adults, they're living in a big home that either their kids have all grown up and moved out, or sometimes we have active adults that are living alone because their spouse have passed away. And so I hear this a lot from young adults like ourselves. We would love to have our parents move closer to us. You see, that's why education is very important. And that's why planning and communication in the beginning stages with the young adults and the active adults, right? To where they need to discuss that, you know, why or how can we get our parents close to us? And they need to learn that we have a program where the clients can sell their home and not be able to just use all the equity of the home. Most active adults, when they sell their home, it's because it frees up equity so that they have initial source of income, right? That's the majority reason why people want to sell their homes because they have lack of income. We have a program where they can sell their home, and instead of using all their equity, right, from the sale of their home to buy another house, we can have something called a reverse purchase program where we could, based off of their age and based off of the property value that they buy, we give them a certain percentage. What that allows them to do is be able to buy another home and not use all the assets from the sale of their primary house, right? So this way, they only put the difference down, and the rest of the equity that they have from the sale of the home, now they can basically use that as a source of additional income. And then the new house that they buy, Dell, are you ready for this? They can move into that new house with no mortgage payment and live there for the rest of their life.
Nice. That's very nice and very attractive for seniors that are worried about how I'm going to make this payment, right?
But this allows them to move closer to their kids, move it to the right size property, whether it's single story. That's the whole objective.
Right. Now, can you share a success story where a reverse mortgage allowed someone to choose the right living arrangement without financial stress?
Oh, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of financial stress has to do with mortgage debt, right? And people don't realize that with a reverse, the client is in control of their mortgage, not the lender. With a reverse mortgage program, they can choose to make payments if they want to. They could pay any amount if they choose. They don't have to pay anything. To answer your question, the key component to financial stress is having control of your mortgage. That's the key. If you have that option to be able to be in control of your mortgage, then you're not going to have that financial stress. You're not going to have that worry about being able to financially stay or age in place where you live.
Right. Let's segue into generational wealth and pre-inheritance. You talk about pre-inheritance. A lot of folks may not know what that is that are listening or watching. Can you explain what that is and why it's powerful?
People call it many different things, pre-inheritance or gifting, right? Like I mentioned earlier in my interview with you, my mom was able to help me buy my first home. Okay. What she did was she gave me the deposit to put down. And that's the situation right now, Dale, is there's Gen Z, Gen X, there's all these young adults where they don't have a good concept of saving, but they could afford to make the mortgage payment because they make good money, especially here in the Bay Area. What we do is we try to teach a lot of active adults, don't wait until you pass to help your kids to be able to buy their first home, right? And let me tell you, I've learned this from a lot of my clients. I didn't come up with this. I always ask my clients, why are you getting reverse? What is the purpose, right? My job is to profile, to ask the right questions. And many times they tell me, well, I'm using this to help my kids buy their first home. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's what my mom did for me. And by them doing that and learning how they can help their kids while they're alive, it helps them to see what their kids are doing with it, right? That's another huge advantage. There's so many advantages that people don't realize that they can learn how they can really help themselves and their kids while they're alive. By them helping their kids buy their first home, right? They've left their kids with something we call generational wealth, right?
Yeah.
And that to me is something that helps young adults and active adults to, especially with a family, to be able to grow and to be able to leave their legacy with more than just one single home.
What's your opinion? Do you think does inheritance change family relationships for the better?
Oh my gosh. Let me tell you, when my mom gave me that deposit to put down on my first home, it's built actually a stronger bond with me and my mom because it helped me to realize how appreciative I am with her. And it helped me to even respect her more because it made me realize that for a parent to think about you in the beginning stage of your career and your life, right? That is a parent that's not looking after themselves. That's the parent that's looking after you and them both.
Yeah, I understand. Now, how do you structure these strategies so the senior is still financially secure?
What we do is we make sure that the active adults have enough equity to, first of all, be able to support themselves in their long-term care. That's the main objective, right? And so we do ask a lot of questions. We ask basically, do you have long-term health insurance, right? Do you have life insurance? Do you have these things in order to be able to assist you to be able to retire in your home? If they don't have a lot of those things, or if they have some of those things, then we make sure they understand how they can use equity as part of that retirement tool. But if they do have it, then what's great is that then they don't need to have a lot of that equity. And that's where they can share that equity with their young adults to help them to create generational wealth, right? To help them get started in buying their first home for themselves and their family.
Right. What creative uses of equity have you seen that people don't often think about?
Here's a story that one of my clients did, which blew me away. Remember when we had that mortgage crash in 2008,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
A lot of properties plummeted in values, right? And so in 2010, I had a client come and said, I'd like to apply for a reverse mortgage. I said, fantastic. And the property was free and clear. And I asked the client, if you don't mind me asking, why are you applying for this program and what are you trying to accomplish with it? And he said, this is funny, you're going to laugh. He goes, well, my wife would never let me do a reverse mortgage, touch the equity out of my home. So now that she's passed, my son and I want to pull the equity out of my home and buy 10 properties in Modesto. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to buy these properties in cash because with cash, we could buy a bunch of them. With the equity I'm pulling out of my home, do a reverse, which I don't have to pay taxes on, right? And they bought 10 properties in Modesto. The son was a contractor, fixed them all up, rented them all out, and created $20,000 a month in income for the son and for the client. And the client just used that money to pay back on the reverse. And I just thought that was so genius because the client was able to pull equity out tax free, right? Not have to pay tax on that money and be able to buy all these properties and create income. You see, that's what we don't plan ahead is as an active adult, how are we creating additional income for ourselves when we retire? This client was able to create additional income for himself, right?
Right.
And most importantly, leave all these properties for his kids when he passes. And it's amazing. Not only will he be able to leave his home, but he's leaving 10 additional properties for his kids. That's what we call generational wealth.
Excellent. I love that story. I wanted to go back to your reverse purchase program using a reverse mortgage. One of the questions that I forgot to ask you was, what's the timeline for making a move like that with your program? How does that work timing wise?
I always tell my clients, I even tell myself, timing is everything. That's why it's important that you speak to your reverse mortgage advisors, right? And let them know what it is you're trying to accomplish and what it is your time plan is so that they can help you, right? With all their other referral partners that they work with to help you to transition in the right time that you need in order to be able to help you achieve what it is that you're trying to achieve. And for me, especially that transition piece, right? I always want to make sure that my clients know that, based off of whatever is out there for sale, whatever they can sell their home for, we got to make sure that we do this at the right time. Because if we don't do it at the right time, we don't transition at the right time, we're not going to have the biggest benefit that we need.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are there tax implications families need to be aware of?
I'm not a tax advisor.
Right.
So I would always advise that they go to their tax person, right? And talk to their tax person about if they're selling their home, what the ramification on that will be, right? Also, they're taking money out of their equity, right? Most of the time it is tax-free for people, but we don't know their income stuff. And we don't know whether or not pulling equity out would affect their tax, which normally it shouldn't, because 99% of the time it doesn't, but we don't know that. We always advise our clients to talk to their tax representative.
Okay. Now, what are the top misconceptions people have about reverse mortgages?
That, first of all, Dale, thank you for asking that, because one of our biggest challenge, and you asked me the question, why isn't people using this program, right? As much as they should be, especially if there's such great benefits and being able to create generational wealth, being able to see what their kids do with their equity, right? So I always explain to my clients and my referral partners is that, what you hear, you have to investigate, right? Many times people just say to me, oh, I heard you could lose your house. I heard that the kids end up with nothing, right? And so I asked them the question, where did you hear that from? And why did that person lose their house? And 99.999% of the time, Dale, they can't answer my question because they don't know. It's all hearsay. So what I do is I just educate them and I make it very simple. I just tell them a reverse mortgage is identical to a conventional mortgage. It's both liens against the property. The only difference is, Dale, in a conventional mortgage, the lender tells you what you need to do, right? Make payments, make it on time. If not, you'll get charged late fees, right? And after 6 months, they could start the foreclosure process on you. In a reverse, you're in control of your mortgage. You don't have to make a payment if you choose not to. You could pay part of it if you want to, but it's only a lien against the house, right?
Right.
And so, yes, there were bad misconceptions back in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, right? Because those were basically a lender's reverse mortgage product. But now with our HECM program, it is very, very, for me, I would say it's very regulated, and it really helps people to understand what they can do with the equity of their home as long as they're willing to learn.
Yeah. For someone interested in exploring reverse mortgages, what's the first step they should take?
I would say the first thing they should do is open their mind. They have to open their mind. If they don't open their mind, they're never going to learn. Okay. I would also say, make sure your young adults are involved so that they understand what the parents can do for themselves and what they can do for their children. Once they open their mind and talk to their kids, meet or get to know a specialist like myself, so that this way we can educate you, ask you the right questions so that we can figure out what it is that you're trying to accomplish and what is it that you need in order to accomplish that goal. And then once we know what those are, then we could explain to you the programs that we have and how each of the features and benefits will tie to their goal and provide them the solution that they need.
Okay. How can adult children start this conversation with their parents without it being uncomfortable?
Well, I actually started with my mom very young. When she pulled equity out to help me buy my first home, I realized that she was doing something for me. I felt I needed to do something for her. So I had the conversation with her. I'm like, Mom, when you get older, let's talk about this. When you get older, what resources and tools do we have in order as a family to be able to take care of you? And what is it that you want to do? Do you want to stay in your home and provide in-home care? Did you want to go to a facility? We talked all about that before she even got to that point. That's what we need to do. As young adults, we should be planning this way ahead, not a lot later. I see that a lot where people are scrambling and young adults are scrambling and then they try to come to us to see what we can do to help. Sometimes we can help, Dale, but sometimes we can't because there's not enough equity there. And
Yeah.
so I think by really planning and making sure that you realize and understand what it is you need to do in the beginning will help you know what resources are available for you down the road.
Perfect. I forgot to ask, can you let our audience know where you're based out of and where you can help people with reverse mortgages if they wanted to obtain one?
Well, here's something great, Dale. As you mentioned, you introduced me. I am an area sales manager for the reverse mortgage division with New American Funding. I cover the state of California and Nevada and a little bit of Arizona. And I have team members all over the states. What's great about our division and our companies, we're in all 50 states. So it doesn't matter where you move to, where you go. New American Funding, and especially the reverse mortgage division, we have people anywhere that you need us to be so that we can help you and provide you with the right transition, the right solution, but most importantly, be able to hand walk you through the process.
Excellent. Final questions are any final words and how can someone get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Don't be afraid of talking about what you need to do for your retirement, whether it's yourself or whether it's your parents. Don't be afraid of that because when you become afraid, you lose out on a lot of options, opportunities. That's why I mentioned to you, Dale, timing is very important. Live by timing. If you want just to be educated and if you want us to make sure that we can help you achieve your goals, your retirement goals or your generational goals, don't hesitate to reach out to New American Funding with the reverse mortgage division. You can look us online or you can even call myself. My name is Kevin Pham. I'm with New American Funding. I am one of the area sales manager for the reverse division. And my phone number is area code 408-623-8659. A lot of my team members are licensed in many different states. We can help you transition to where you need to be. We are not here to sell you anything. We're here to advise you and walk you through the process.
Perfect. Kevin, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. You've shown that home equity isn't just about numbers on a page. It's about choices, freedom, and creating a legacy in real time. And for those of you watching or listening, if your loved one is considering senior living and exploring ways to fund aging in place, downsizing, or even help your kids now, let's talk. Schedule a free consultation and learn more about my services at www.simplifyseniortransitions.com. Have a quick question, DM me on Instagram at Sold by Dale. And don't forget, for more conversations like this, check out my podcast, Simplify Senior Transitions, right here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major podcast platforms. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could benefit from this information. Thanks for tuning in. Kevin, one last thank you for being on the episode with me today.
Well, thank you so much, Dale.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And for everyone else, I'll see you on the next episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast.